Yo, what is going on, you guys? So today I'm bringing guys a brand new sports cards video. In today's video, I'm going to be bringing you guys a full guide of how I believe each and every single one of you guys, no matter where you're starting from, can make 100,000 plus in sports cards in 2025. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. All right, guys, so we are on here on Alt, and I'm pretty much going to be breaking down the strategies that I have been using to make a lot of money in the sports card market, the strategies a lot of my friends have been using that have really been paying off for us, and how I believe you guys can replicate it to some extent and really have a successful 2025. As you guys know, right now, the crypto market is booming. There's a lot of money coming back into the alternative asset space. And I think with that is going to come a lot of money flowing back into sports cards. Obviously, maybe not to the extent that we saw during 2020 and 2021 with everyone home. But I believe that a lot of the alternative money, alternative asset money that's in, these other areas that have been doing really well, such as crypto, is eventually going to flow back into sports cards. And if you do want to be position grade for that, there are a couple things that I think are super crucial to know on how to buy and sell sports cards to really make the money that you guys would be hoping to make, which I just put 6 figures because I think that's very, very achievable for someone who is doing this full time, or is doing this with a lot of their time and or has money to invest already. And even if you don't, I think if you put in enough time and effort, there is a lot of opportunity to get to that 6-figure mark. Now, as you guys can see, I made a couple of videos about this in the past, but there is a lot of historical trends over the last 3 to 5 years since the sports card market boom that have pretty much showed that sports cards in general bottom out around Christmas time. This is the time where people are not really as much into cards as they were, during the peak summer months when there are a bunch of card shows. This is kind of like the quiet months of the sports card, market, where we're in the mid-season for a lot of sports. The hype is not really at its highest points. During the off-season leading up to the seasons is where we see prices at their highest points. So right now we're just seeing a lot of kind of bleeding, you could say, in the market, where the market is really not quite getting the liquidity that it was getting during the summer. And we're seeing a lot of players, even solidified players such as Mike Trout, LeBron, a lot of these other great players, we're seeing their cards come down to very low levels. If we want to look at even guys like Michael Jordan and where his cards were last, winter compared to where they are now, you could see that during the winter is when you see the flows really at a low level. So if you look at, for example, like a Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer and a PSA 9, last year, very low point, December, right around Christmas time, we saw some very low sales of this. This PSA 9 Jordan Fleer, for example, was around a $10,000 card, during the slow months of December. And then as we can see, the summer is usually when stuff peaks. So we saw this card between, December at around 10,000 to, May, June, that kind of time, around 20,000. So we saw that up around 100% just based off the same cycle that we see every single year, which is the fact that prices always bottom out around December and prices always peak out around the summer months. And so we're seeing that same trend start to happen. We're seeing the whole sports card market take a big turn and come down a little bit, which is normal. Every single year this happens around December time. So we're seeing basketball go down, we're seeing football go down, we're seeing baseball go down, we're seeing soccer go down, and we're seeing hockey go down. So we're seeing all 5 major sports really at a low point. And this is when a lot of the money is made. The people who are willing to step in and buy into these cards that have really come down a lot, they're going to see some great gains. If we see the offseason effect, throughout the offseason, we see a lot of money, flow in and a lot of prices go up. If you look at Jordan Love, for example, he had a massive breakout year last year in the NFL. There's players who have these years every single year. But Jordan Love was the one for last year. And if we want to look at his cards, where they were right before, so we can see like his light blue prism, for example, this card, bottomed out November to December time where we currently are at. Of course, he had a great playoff. So this is a player that's going to be, kind of an anomaly. But if you look, for example, November 23rd, this same card sold for $180. January he had a great playoffs, and this was when he got knocked out of the playoffs around January to February. It was January, but it was kind of like middle of January. This card was around a $350 to $400 card when he got knocked out of the playoffs. He did not play a game from February until the season started around August, September. And this card during the offseason went from $350 to sales all the way up to $720, multiple sales around $600, $650. So we saw his cards throughout the offseason around double in price. And we could see a lot of trends like that across baseball off seasons, football off seasons, and basketball off seasons. Those are the three main sports that I look at. And we could see across the board where Jordan Love's market kind of got to during the offseason, during the summer, when prices were at their highest points. So we can see in January when Jordan Love, or you can see December to January when Jordan Love started to play really well. This, for example, True National Treasures and a PSA 9 was, it had a couple sales, between 2,200 in November up to 7,000 in December. That was obviously with the auto grade of 8, so that's something to keep in mind. But throughout the offseason, this guy did not play a single game, and this card jumped up to $17,000 as of July, which is usually always when prices are going to peak for football. And now we're seeing the trend continue, and it's starting to come back down. Probably bottom out November, December, January-ish, and same exact things happen every single year. For guys like Jordan Love, for guys who had great years the year before, and there was a lot of opportunity as well for players who got injured the year before. So I look at guys like LaMelo. We have a membership program. The link's down below. Not to say anything about that, but what we pretty much were talking to our members about and what we were giving out in our picks was that LaMelo Ball was a great investment. This was around March to April of this year because he was injured last year and all eyes were off LaMelo Ball. So we were telling our members to get into LaMelo Ball's cards because all eyes were off him, and when the next season comes around, that's when people are going to be looking for his cards again. So the biggest kind of thing the reason I kind of brought that up was you always want to look at where attention will be months from now or weeks from now. You never want to look at where attention is now and buy into that. Of course, it's good to know where attention is at all times, but the biggest thing is, okay, this is a player that I don't see people looking at right now, and I could see people looking at their prices X amount of time from now. And if you hold until then, chances are you're going to do really well. So LaMelo Ball, when our members were buying up a lot of his cards, for example, his National Treasures True RPA was around a $5,000 card in a PSA 8 in January. And currently our members have told me privately that they're moving them for around $8,000 to $9,000. So they've made a couple $1,000s just by holding a couple months because the tension is back on LaMelo Ball, and that proves that it's the right time to sell. And we just saw his PSA 10 sell for $33,000. So we could see his market come up even a little bit more from where, they're telling me it's at right now. But I definitely see if you're a step ahead of the market, you can make a lot of money in the sports card industry, especially if you know how these cycles work. So if you're always getting into the players, if you look at guys like JJ McCarthy right now, people are not really looking at his cards because, he's injured and he won't play until next August. So there's a lot of time until he plays again. I think JJ McCarthy's market will probably peak out during the summer when people are getting hyped to see him play again. His cards right now are just not seeing much attention at all. If you look at where his cards are compared to other rookies such as Drake May, of course, Caleb Williams, whichever other rookies you're looking at, you can see that his cards are way, way, way below them. And during summer months, they're going to be at the same level, if not maybe even higher, because we don't know what he's going to do. So there's that kind of hype there. So you always want to be steps ahead of the market. And I think if you can find a strategy that works for you and really triple down on it, this is the strategy that I like buying during the off seasons. And you can also flip during the off seasons because during the season, prices are super volatile. You're going to have tens of players going down in price. You're going to have tens of players going up in price every single week. There's just so much going on. So it's hard to flip and make money like that because the markets are so unstable. During the off season is when nobody, of course, with a couple exceptions such as Klay Thompson, nobody can tear an ACL or, really get injured during the off season. It does happen sometimes, but in general, there's no injuries in the offseason. There's only hype because players are not playing, so hype continues to build up before they play. You always want to look at what catalyst do I see for a card price to go up. And usually it can just be hype is going to build up before the season. And when the season starts, that's a hype catalyst. And that is usually the time to sell off, because once the hype catalyst has already happened, then they have to continue to have more hype catalysts for the cards to continue to go up. So if you look at guys like Donovan Mitchell, throughout the offseason, prices went up a little bit, had their steady jump, but the new catalyst was that the Cavs started 15-0. So you saw his prices come out the bat super high. You could see his prices continue to rise in price. They're up, over 8% over the last 90 days. But if you look for every Donovan Mitchell, you have plenty of players who have gone down in price. You have guys like Zion Williamson who crashed in price. You have guys like Victor Wembanyama who crashed in price. You have guys who are even having pretty solid seasons that have gone down in price. You have a lot of rookies, such as Brandon Projemski or whoever it is that had a lot of hype during the offseason and are currently kind of crashing down in price a little bit. So you're going to have that mixed bag, and that's why it's risky to put a lot of money in during a season. But right now, for example, if you look at baseball, I think the best opportunity right now is buying baseball. So how I kind of personally ride the waves is I buy into baseball between November and January, sell off in March during spring training. That is when the peak of a hype for baseball is always during March. Right now, as you can see, the top prospects, all the best players in the league, they're going to be bottoming out in price. And once they start to bottom out and stop going down and start flattening, that's usually a good buying signal. That means it's probably done bottoming out and it's going to somewhat pick back up. So if we look at baseball, we usually buy during November to January, sell off around March. And then March is usually the time where football is at its lowest point because the season just ended. People are, kind of at their low points, and you're going to see prices bottom out in March for football. So that's the time to buy football. And then football, usually best time to sell is July to August. And kind of colliding with that is going to be basketball, which usually bottoms out between April and May, and that's going to peak a little bit after football. So basketball is usually going to peak around September, the month before the season, when the preseason's starting, when all the hype's coming. So if you just play those cycles, buy hyped players for those cycles, I think there's a great chance you can make a lot of money doing that. Flipping them throughout the offseason are so liquid. If you look at guys like CJ Stroud, his cards were ultra liquid throughout the offseason. Everyone was so hyped on him, and you don't have to risk him not playing well during the season, because if you're following these cycles, you're selling before the season. So if you look at, for example, the CJ Stroud black and red checkered, this card had hype. It bottomed out around May, and September, it went up $1,000. You're going to see that trend across CJ Stroud's cards where right before the season, prices were at their highest points. And then, you don't have to hold into the season to play that risky game, because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but your losses are going to really outweigh your wins, or at least counterbalance, and you're not going to make much. But if you're playing the safer game and just buying throughout the offseason and selling at the price peaks, from 90% of players, they're going to peak right before the season. The 10% that really exceed their expectations, they're going to continue to go up during the season. But for 90% that peak out before the season, if you're just in those players' markets and you can make your good money, you don't have to wait and see what happens during the season. If you look at CJ Stroud's market or any player, Wembanyama, they all peaked out during the bottom, part of the season. So there's just a lot of opportunity if you're able to play those cycles well, and just buy during the low moments. So for football, it would be buying March and selling, right before the season starts when prices are at their highest. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something from this video. Let me know in the comment section below what your guys' strategy is for 2025 and what your guys' goals are. It's always good to write out your goals. So write out your goals in the comment section below on what you guys think is going to happen with the sports card market. Other than that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.